Jim Brewer.
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 All right, let's not keep our guests waiting. So today we have, I have a special guest. I'm glad he came along. His book, 9 Steps to Build a Life of Meaning, which I think is very important for people to know about in general. We've lost our way of what our true meaning is. I think we really lost our way. But I'd love to we'll pick Rick Walker's brain with all this subject. So please welcome Mr. Rick Walker. What's up, Rick?
Jimmy, what's happening?
How are you?
Man, I'm doing well. I did not wear the pink pants today. I have a rule about pink pants. I only wear it in South Florida. So I spend a month every year in Sarasota, just north of you, or over in Miami. I only wear pink pants in South Florida.
I grew up in the Northeast, and I can now recognize everyone who's from the Northeast because when they visit Florida, all they do is wear black. They wear black shirts, they wear black shorts, they wear dark colored clothes. And it took a while for one of my friends who actually is from Illinois to finally go, Jim, submit. Start putting on some light clothes. And it took me a while, but now I can't. Rick, sandals. Sandals. I get so aggravated when I got to hop on a plane and put on socks and sneakers. I've immersed into the Florida, South Florida culture, which, by the way, Sarasota, I was this close to moving. I love Sarasota.
It's really great. It's a really great place. So you got the IMG right there where they train all these elite athletes from all over the world. These parents will ship these kids there to go live and train how to be an elite athlete. And it's actually a little bit like a cult. Have you realized that all the great cults have just disappeared? We have not seen any really great cults for like 30 years. It's a little disappointing.
I might debate you on that one.
Okay.
I think they're all very well hidden.
Okay.
I think they hide their gang signs a little better, if that makes sense. A lot of this, a lot of this, a lot of this. I've seen all the gang signs that the cults do. I consider them all cults. We don't have to get into detail what they are. The handshakes, all that. They just cover it better. That's all. Instead of, we'll leave that as is.
Okay, it sounds good. So it's a great area, man. Like where else would you want to live but in South Florida? Between Naples and Sarasota, pre-hurricane and Miami, you got it all.
Did your area have any problems with the last one? Ian, right? No.
Yeah.
It was Ian, right? Or no? What was this one that just passed last September, October? Right?
I
was
remember.
In Europe, and I know Sarasota got whooped.
It did. We always stay out in St. Armand Circle area, and so I think all those great restaurants there just got wiped out.
It was underwater. That's one of my favorite all-time places in the entire world. Is that St. Armand? I love it there. Is it? Please tell me it's back to normal.
I should be there in the next 60 days, and I'll let you know. I'm not sure. I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think that Shore restaurant. I think those guys moved out. I think a number of the key restaurants moved out of St. Armand's, from what I heard.
My favorite was that there was a Greek place. But there was a Greek place like off the circle on, as it bleeds out down one of the streets. That was I would go up to Sarasota just to sit and have that and go to that Greek place. I loved it there. Well, I hope they recover because, like I said, it's one of my favorite places in the world. So, Rick, where are you at in life? I know you got 3 girls. I know you're big time entrepreneur, podcast, the book. Where are you at in life? What's your mission? I mean, you seem like you've accomplished everything. Where do you go from here?
There was this theologian named John Wesley that said that I just really want to be useful, and that's kind of my thing, Jim. I just want to be useful. I want to be helpful where I can. I don't want to have looked back and seen that I wasted it. And so, as there are various opportunities that present themselves, I've tried to maximize those opportunities, then move on to the next thing fairly quickly. And so it's led me a lot of different directions. But yeah, just locally, I live in Houston. Got the 3 girls. Got a beautiful wife. We've been married for 22 years, and
Huh.
just sort of living the dream life in Houston. For the first probably 20 years, I worked 8 hours a day in nonprofit work and spent 8 hours a day building businesses. In the last 5 years, I really try to spend more time with the family, less time in business, less time in nonprofit, and then, of course, this forthcoming book.
You know, I noticed even when my girls were young, um, I really would, I really knew a lot of people that were extremely successful and they were away a lot. And I started seeing the way the kids were as they get older. And it's really, that's a tough challenge for a lot of people that, that become money successful or CEO successful. To the kids don't care how successful you are. They really, it baffles my mind how you can go, do you understand what daddy does? Do you understand how much money he makes? Do you understand how popular he is, how important? Kids don't care. They really,
Right.
all they want to know is, are you here? Are you here with me? And it really, that's a challenge for a lot of people. So I tip my hat that you're at that stage, because it's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not. And one of the things I've done is I scaled a nonprofit organization into 53 countries. And there was a lot of opportunities to travel because everyone wants you to come. I was the chairman of that organization. Everyone wants you to travel and go see them and shake hands. And guys, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. That's not my cup of tea. Look, if you're not coming to my funeral, you really don't count. I'm really not going to give up time with people that are going to my funeral to come spend time with you, and I just can't do that. And that's sort of a dividing line because I figured out very early on, Jim, that the only 3 things that matter in life are how you manage your dinner table, how you manage the books that you read, and how you manage the time when you're alone. And if you can't get all 3 of those clicking, like locking, you're going to miss out on something very, very important.
Rick, what put you in this mindset and your drive? Did this start when you were young? Is this from one of your parents? Is this something you studied? Like when did it click in and you went, this is the direction I'm going and what I'm doing in life?
Man, great question. I grew up down in Corpus Christi, which is sort of halfway between Houston and Mexico. And we grew up in a
Yep.
2-bedroom house. My dad was out of work quite a bit of our upbringing, but we hung out a lot. We did a lot of things together. He taught me a little bit about different types of ways to make money, painting flagpoles and trading watches and that sort of thing. And he gave me a little bit of an entrepreneurial drive there. When I got into college, I decided I want to start businesses, and I read a number of books. And I started reading very seriously, and so I started reading about 50 books a year when I was in college.
Wow.
Mainly sort of business and self improvement books, a lot of theology books, and some philosophy, but it grew from there. And out of that experience, it led me sort of on a perpetual path to try to figure out how to improve not only myself, but then obviously that's sort of that circle of love, as Dante puts it, has to expand beyond yourself if you're ever going to make anything out of your life. And so that's sort of become the goal of my life so far.
Did your wife, did you get married before the success or as it started hitting? Like when did that all start falling into place?
Yeah. So I was grew up in Corpus Christi. I went to college up in Oklahoma City, a little private school. We couldn't afford it. My mom took out a loan to make the first month's payment, just assuming she'd be able to find the money for the second month and the 10th month and so forth. And so I went up there and I eventually started a business one summer down in Corpus Christi. I was on a call center floor doing telemarketing one summer. And I just sort of had this bug, and I think it's sort of a divine thing, Jim, where I had the headphones on just like this. I was getting ready to make calls for a second summer in a row, and something just told me, hey, Rick, you don't need this. And I stood up, took the headphones on, and told the manager, like, I appreciate the opportunity. I just don't need this. I walked out. The very next day, I started the business. This is when I was 20. My wife and I were just starting to date around that time.
Wow.
Between 20 and 26, I grew the business from 0 to 400 employees, all
And
around.
if you don't mind me asking, what was the business?
We were
So
main,
everyone knows.
yeah, we were maintaining buildings, and so we would go in and, like, let's say you've got an office building, and you would have
Yeah.
electricians, plumbers, stuff like that. I would give them one flat price for the entire year, and I would basically warranty everything in the building. Like the toilets go out, I pay for it. Light bulbs go out, I pay for it. All it's sort of an all-you-can-eat type of building expense thing. And so we did that. But keep in mind, I was going to school in Oklahoma City, and I started this in Corpus Christi, which is a 9-hour drive. So my last year of
Mm.
college, my last year and a half of college, on Thursday nights after class, I would drive 9 hours down to Corpus Christi. I'd train employees. No, excuse me. I would see clients on Fridays. I would train employees on Saturdays, and Sundays I would drive 9 hours back. And I did that 52 weeks a year for the first year and a half. And so 18 hours a week of driving to go build the business 9 hours away. And you got to be a little bit crazy. Like, it's probably like your business. You got to be a little bit nuts to be able to find some success.
I don't even know if it's crazy. I think it's a drive. I think it's a vision you see, and then you commit to it. And well, the reason why I asked with your family, with your kids, because I've noticed, like, just with me, I've watched my parents struggle hard, but they didn't complain. I mean, they struggled hard. And there was a moment in my life where I went, I don't know if I can work the way they work. I don't know if I can work for a 2-week vacation every year. And my dad was in the war. I'm like, I don't, wow. And they work until their 60s, and then they get to crush it for 10 years. And then, oof. But my dad, like you said, your mom, I'm assuming they didn't have a lot of money, 2 bedroom. She paid for your first month and all that. Was that her confidence in you, of seeing your vision of where you're going? And I wonder if that was like a subliminal wow, an empowerment. I'm always fascinated by that stuff.
So I wasn't even going to go to college. And that, yeah. So I think that initial payment, again, she went to the bank to take out a loan to make that payment. Now, this woman has worked 2 full-time jobs. Most of the time, had a third part-time job the entirety of my childhood. So 2 full-time jobs plus
Right.
a part-time job, and still had to take a loan for this. And so I think I really went more out of respect, because my mom had made that sacrifice to go and pay that first month out of respect. Now,
Mhm.
the interesting
Mhm.
thing is, I truly believe that everything I've been able to experience, again, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just sort of experiencing. I'm sort of living in sort of the master plan that's been built around our
It's
family. It's
yeah.
I think that woman has probably been in some closet somewhere praying for me the entire time. That's what I think has happened. I think some woman that just sacrificed, happened to give birth to me, has just been praying for me. She's been blessing us, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of guys have found massive success like you, and a number of guys that I know that are just massively successful. There's probably someone praying for them in a closet somewhere, and that's revolutionized our entire lives.
Hands down. And I don't care what anyone said. My mom was a key part of me and God. Very key part of that. And she wasn't church because she got scorned. There was terrible things that happened. So it kind of opened her eyes to, quote, religion. Um, and she was very hurt by that, but she always had a deep thing with God. And she would talk to me about it all the time and do like little prayers, our Father on heaven, and always say, like, God works in mysterious ways. Be careful. God works in mysterious ways. And all those subliminal seeds really set a foundation that I probably don't even realize she was such a strong pivotal time time went on, and my dad did too. So that's fascinating to me. So the theology, what did you study theology wise? Because I have a friend that studied theology, and we would go back and forth with certain things, and he said something very, very pivotal to me at the time, and I didn't do it until pretty much the last couple of years. But I just want to hear your experience with theology and what that is really.
So in college, I was a trumpet performance major. So, you and I had that alike. We're big music heads. And I was really forced to take some theology classes when I was there, some philosophy classes, because it was a private Christian school, again, not by my
Uh,
own desire there. And it really sort of
sure.
seeded that desire to learn a little bit more, a little bit more. Now, when I was growing up, my mom had me in some sort of in a program. It was like a Bible memory program. Again, I don't consider myself a good Christian. I mean, I'm not a good Christian by any stretch of the imagination. But she had me in these programs. Again, kind of not my choice; it was her choice. And we would memorize like
Sure.
entire books of the Bible. Like I had I don't know
Well,
5 or 6 books of the Bible just completely memorized when I was in high school and middle school. It was crazy. And so
wow.
I don't have an encyclopedic memory by any stretch of the imagination, but she sort of formed that, and she sort of seeded that in, and it's sort of like those passing words, those passing comments when we were growing up. And so as I got into school, I began to have conversations, and I began to do outside research and outside reading in addition to that as I got older, sort of these 50 books a year. A lot of those became more and more of those became theology and philosophy books. And so I eventually joined a board of a seminary. I've done some work in sort of, they call it apologetics. It's sort of the refutation of the debate of big ideas. And so I've been involved
Mm,
in debating atheists, like professional atheist debaters, and then also individuals from other sorts of civilizations, Eastern civilizations, about their specific worldviews. And so it's just been sort of a hobby for me so far. I mean, obviously, I take it somewhat seriously to be able to put myself out there, but it's been a hobby. But I like thinking about big ideas. I'm a big idea man, and so I'm not very good at it, but I like thinking about it. And so I want to read about it. I want to become better in that.
hmm. What are some of your big ideas? If or, you know what, I don't know. Are you allowed to say that? Not that you're allowed to say that, but I've learned in time sometimes putting the big ideas out actually hurts the big idea, if that makes sense. But I don't know. Are you on that theory or no?
Yeah, yeah. So you're going to be look like a quack or just a crazy person. I mean, those of us that were pushing back against Lord Fauci 3 years ago. I mean, we look like cracks back then. We look pretty smart now. But
Exactly.
that's how the game's played. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really great ideas, specifically around the subject of time. You see a lot of these. We talked about what you called a second ago about these are normally um, basically bastardizations. I don't know if I want to say that, but bastardizations of mainline religions that sort of get warped and shaped to fit a cult leader's perspective. Now it's all time based. You have to have the original mainline religion that existed before those things could be warped in fashion into whatever that cult's going to believe. But everything has since happened like that, where the standard ideas come before I guess the new religion. And so people would say like Plato and things that have come before Christ were, like, Christ sort of just
Right.
took what worked and copied it. And I've got a pretty I've got a pretty good understanding of how that of how that works. And let me put it in 2 sentences, and I'll hand it back to you because this is a little bit
Please.
technical. Okay.
Please.
Okay,
I
so
love this.
yeah, so assume that God created time, right? That's all the great world religions says that God created the heavens and the earth. He was before the beginning, so he's outside of time, right? He's outside of time. Kind of have your timeline here, outside of time, and the great Abrahamic tradition. So this is Judaism, Christianity, Islam. All say that Christ existed. He came in. So what happens is that you have God, Christ is God, basically invades the timeline. Now, what our simpleton minds would think that whenever he invades, everything that comes after him is what he does, but everything he says, that looks like what happened beforehand, that he copied that because it was kind of prior knowledge. But if you have someone that's coming in from outside of time that sort of invades, it would be a ripple that ripples both forward and backward in time, necessarily. And so everything that happened before Christ, I believe, was a result of Christ's invasion hundreds or thousands of years later. And I have some things about that in my forthcoming book, but it seems to me that the ideas were not that came before him; they were perfected in him, and sort of the bastardization of the ideas precipitated outward even before him. So the further they get back from Christ, back in time, the more away from ultimate truth they are. Likewise, the further they get in time, the more variations they take, the further they are away from truth. And so it seems to me that Christ's sort of invasion into time, into the timeline, that seems to be the crux of the maximal amount of truth that our world's ever contained. So that's one crazy big idea.
No, I don't know if it's a crazy idea. It's a fascinating idea. You ever hear any of Jordan Maxwell's stuff?
Jordan
You know
Maxwell?
him?
No, I don't. Tell me.
So he was big theology too, and he goes back, and he's also one of those is like, which I never knew, that the Christ story was done. Don't hold me on this, either 12 to 15 times before that story came, meaning born of a virgin, the kings and the thing and the same exact story and the miracles and all that. I don't know anything about that, but I thought that was, and he gave the exact examples. I was like, huh, where I always look at this, like my wife is full blown Jesus, and that's it. I love the thought of Christ. Like if people say, you Christian, I go, I'm a fan, meaning don't label me. Let me walk the walk and make an example. And if you enjoy the example, don't worry if I label myself as a monkey or this or whatever. Yeah. Because I feel over time, bad people have discredited all types of faith, and they've infiltrated, so therefore they put the black mark at it all. And I always wonder, because if you look at tribes and stuff like that, where does a full-blown, I hate using the word religion, where does it come from? Or a cult, as you say, whatever. They're wearing robes. Like, when did the robes start? When did the hat start? When did the hat? Why does the Pope wear a beanie if he's Christian? Isn't that a Jewish symbol? I don't understand that. Why? So it's very fascinating. I go to Europe and you'll see a church that clearly was built a long time ago, and they have dragons on it and this on it, and there's other things. I'm like, are they advertising with that symbol and that symbol? Was this just a big, look at how big we are and what we're capable of? And it always made me wonder if it's all been created to keep us finding out what the ultimate truth is, if that makes sense. Like, you got to go over there to learn about it, or you got to read this to learn about it, or you got to go there to learn about it. Because I'll stop with that one, and then my other question always has been, Rick, we often use religion or God and blah, blah, blah to talk about ourselves, but we never talk about the creation of all existence, which we clearly have zero respect for. We may have respect for just otters, but not the cougars. Maybe the cougars, but not the grasshoppers. Maybe we hate the ants, but we're going to let, the hippos are okay. So it's just, it's almost like a catch-22. Like, is God for just us, or is he for the whole environment? Because I think we're losing the mark tremendously in that world.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we're missing the mark all over the place, Jim. I agree 100% with what you just said. Let me take sort of three hits at what you just said. Not hits on the ideas, but sort
Yeah.
of stabs.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So the first thing is C.S. Lewis, and if you haven't read Mere Christianity, I highly recommend that book. That is the book that's Mere M-E-R-E Christianity by C.S. Lewis. That will shock everything out of your system. Like all the questions. So here's what he says. He says that mankind's favorite hobby is to invent their own gods. Mankind's favorite hobby is to invent their own gods. I want to imagine a Jesus what was the Will Ferrell movie? A baby Jesus, 6 pounds, 8 ounces. I envision bearded Jesus. I like to envision Jesus playing Leonard Skinner. So we like to invent our own fashion Jesus. I want to have Jesus that will not judge me. Right? I want to have all these different things. And the reason why we do that is we really want to be God, but we don't want to take the responsibility of being God. So we have to invent this little side God that we can control, but then we can blame. We can blame him, but we can control him. And so that is what we see over and over again in history. The thing about let me say this about the religion stuff first, because you made a comment about 5 minutes ago about, I think it was your mom kind of getting some religious stuff.
Yeah.
Remember, it was the religious people that crucified Christ. Christ was fighting against religion. Christ is the most anti-religion person ever in history.
Correct.
And so it's right for us to kind of hate the religious crowd. It's right for us to kind of hate on not the architectural symbology of the dragons, kind of hate on the institutions that get sort of meandering about and go and put their tentacles where they doesn't belong. So Christ hated the religion. He was the most anti-religion history. But then there's this idea about these replications of these other gods throughout history, that these 15 different gods like Osiris and folks like that. Joseph Campbell also wrote about this. If you listen to any Jordan Peterson, you'll hear him mimic some of the themes that Joseph Campbell wrote about. He's the guy that made famous sort of the hero's journey, this long narrative arc of what all these great stories tell. And what happens is you have these individuals throughout mythology that play certain roles. You might have a dying and resurrecting god like Osiris, but he's not necessarily born of a virgin. He loses his private parts along the way. It's some of it's just crazy stuff. But there's 3 or 4 or 5 different pieces of it that are the same. Now, if you watch stuff online, they'll mix up a lot of it. They'll make it a little bit more entertaining, but it's not quite factual if you go back and you actually read the actual documentation, the actual books of this stuff. So there's nothing quite like Christ, who basically brings all the perfection of all these different ideas together. But why is that? Plato is, again, I don't want to speak too technically here. Plato in his Republic, chapter 5, book 5, he talks about this. He says, I want to imagine the worst possible man and the best possible man. So he starts. So this is a philosopher. He's saying, like, I'm going to create philosophically the best possible man. Well, what would he look like? Well, everyone would cast stones at him, but he'd really be good inside. So he couldn't be outwardly good because people would sort of laud him. They would give him praise for being good, and that would sort of hype up his ego, his selfishness, his pride. So people would basically hate him, but he would be inwardly pure. And so at some point, this best possible man would have to be accused, although everyone knew he was innocent, right? You start hearing biblical themes here, but Pilate, this man's innocent, but we're going to go and crucify him. Now, this is 300 years after Plato, by the way. So Plato goes through this and even talks about the need to undress this man, to scourge him, to impale him, and to kill him, this most perfect man. Now, what's going on there? What's going on there is you begin to see Plato, and you see this actually in the scripture in the book of John, where philosophy and religion are coming together. Philosophy and religion are coming together, just like the natural sciences and math were meant to come together eventually. Philosophy and religion were meant to come together, and this is why it's necessary for us to see replications of these sort of echoes, from sort of the one sonic boom down into history throughout history. These people that have done things sort of like that, but then you find it all fulfilled in one person, is because these are people that were inventing different characters, inventing different myths based off of philosophies of what sort of ultimate truth, what sort of like the best possible man would look like. And so, of course, we would find sort of copycats of like this throughout history. And so that's sort of my three stabbings at those different elements.
Because I also feel clearly people have been trying to, or people in power who have the most muscle, however you want to define it, have been doing their best to keep. We'll say there's only one God, one order, new world order, blah blah blah, all under one religion, all under one thought. I truly feel that's one of the most dangerous things for all humanity. How do you see the future of leaving of straying away from that? You know, sometimes I wonder, okay, if you got a bunch of Jewish people, Muslim people, Christian people, people that believe in the devil, whatever they believe, and tribesmen that never read a book, and you put them all in a room and we all just start talking and figure we all have the same thing in common, which is we just want peace, we just want balance, it's family, and do what's right for you. Keep greed out of the situation, keep vanity out of the situation, keep all that out of the situation, and we all find a harmony. What is that in the future? Because I know Christians were like, it's not a Christ. And I try to tell my Christians friends, like, listen, you could try it as much as you want, but no matter what organization you are, the more you say it's got to be this way, you're never going to bring in anyone. You're not going to do it. How long have you been trying this? Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years? I mean, I've only been alive almost 60 and it's still not working. So where does it ever turn into something where that pure love, we'll call it Christ-like love, understanding? How do we get there? Do we get there? Or is there always the need for that balance of the yin, the yang, the good, the bad, the evil, the godly?
Wow, that's a deep question, Jim. I think what you said there at the end really answers it. The yin and yang, sort of the Tao, the goodness and the darkness, right? These are sort of eternal truths where there's always going to be good, there's always going to be evil, right? The evil and the good are always sort of in combat, and it's our desire, if we're on the side of the good, to go invade the evil. Like, that's the purpose of light, is to invade the darkness. So therefore the purpose of
Right.
the good man is to invade the evil territory and try to reclaim some of it. Whether you look at some of the stuff that's happening online with Pornhub, just dastardly deeds, just disgusting things. These guys need to be shut down. And you look at people that are going there and just attacking them wholehearted, like that is the purpose. That's the kind of stuff that we were built for. That's the kind of stuff that good men were built to go fight against.
That's right.
The thing is, we've gotten so far off basis, we can't even decide on what truth is. We can't decide on truth. And if we're going to be progressive, or if the progressives like to call themselves progressive, but they will never define what they're progressing towards. If you're not progressing towards something, you cannot definitionally be a progressive. There's no ultimate place that
Right.
you're all heading. And so they've kind of got mixed up on that. So we can't decide what truth is. And then we can also have sort of this warped idea of love. And these two things are interlocked quite a bit, Jim, I think. And so right now, our kids, and even guys that are sort of our age, sort of in their 50s and 40s, we get mixed up. We happen to think that likes are love, and that facts are truths. But we get that all wrong, because A million likes can never equal a single love. If it's a real, true, substantial love, the love that we have for our wives, like that's a real significant love. I don't give a crap about a million likes. Likewise, a million facts could never equal a single great truth. These are sort of just like they're not even on the same wavelength. And so as long as we're playing in the world of likes and facts, we get disconnected from the things that really matter, sort of truth and love, and we can never get back there. And so what's the key? The key, I think, is for us to continue having conversations like this, where we're able to use our imaginations, we're able to throw out big ideas, we're able to give each other the benefit of the doubt and have honest dialogue, admit where we're wrong. Like, hey, I'm not anywhere near close to being a good person or a good Christian or and I don't know how these things go, but this is what I suspect. And then we come back and forth and we sort of mitigate this, we mediate this. But we have to be focused not on likes, but on love. Like, how do we get to a truer form of love where we accept one another, regardless of where we come from, regardless of our political aisle, of what we think, of our religion, we accept each other, but we keep the communication going, because it's only through communication where we get refinement. And it's only through refinement, that is the same definitionally as progress, that we get towards something that's actually substantial, either truth or love. And so we've got to get back there. But at some point, if we can't define what truth is, and we can't define what love is, we're going to be missing that. And the only way, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, only way we're going to get back to that is if we find out what, or in my case, who is ultimate being. Ultimate being. God claims in the Catholic Church tradition, which I'm not a Catholic, they claim that God is being, like ultimate being himself. And so definitionally, whatever is a kind of a capital T truth, it's a capital T truth because it is relying and pointing, and it's attached to being itself. It's at the root of all reality. And I suspect love is the same way.
Yeah, I feel that. I often feel that too. It's all, and a lot of times I'm under the impression that it's all within. It's all here. There's times when I told my wife, the thing with people having faith, that it's just like politics. Meaning, politics will say, okay, here in Florida, it's like I'm watching chemtrails every other day. So I make a video on the chemtrails. Hey man, it was clear out, and now I'm videotaping the plane spraying, and then it stops, and then it sprays again. People are like, those aren't chemtrails. Oh, okay, whatever. Go back to bed. Go watch your ball game. Go to whatever. But then what will happen? It made it, went viral or whatever. But then a politician will go, hey, just want to let you know I got it under control, and I'm going to fix everything, and I don't like what's going on, and we're going to pass a bill. And in those circumstances, I go, okay, let's take the common sense of that. This is classic trust your false idol. And the false idol will come out and say, I'm going to protect you. Well, why didn't you the last couple of years? Why aren't you doing now? So if there's dangerous things being sprayed over your head, you're telling me we need a bill to protect humanity? Oh, thank you. Thank you for doing so much for us. Oh my God. You know what? We're all going to be okay. They mentioned that they're spraying things, and now they're going to look into it. Oh, thank you, everyone. You're so kind. Thanks for passing bills and making laws to protect our lives, because I know if it was another country, we'd be shooting down the planes.
Yes.
I was getting that with, like, my wife will say, can't wait for Jesus is coming back. And I'll hear Christians say, Jesus is coming back. And I'll say, stop saying that, which makes her angry. I say, stop saying that because he's already here. What do you mean by that? You just got to allow him to live. Stop waiting for the man to come flying out of the sky. And my concern for many people waiting for the savior is it makes you compliant. It makes you sit and wait rather than make action of, well, do what you can now. And your saving grace may not come until long after you passed away. So instead of sitting waiting and saying they're coming, walk the walk and do something now.
That's right.
That's my concern for people that say he's coming back. He's on the way. I see it. I got my binoc. There he is. He's coming around the mountain.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
he's
like
here if you let it live.
Yes.
He's already here.
Yes.
He's inside you. Let
It's
him
like-
shine.
It's like there's this play. I can't remember if it's King Lear or which one it was, but Shakespeare wrote himself into his own play one time, and he actually showed up on stage, kind of in the middle of the play, as a character in his kind of invented world this play that he wrote. And at some point, we've got to decide whether we're in the audience or we're on the stage actually doing the acting. Like, were we written into a script and we're called to do something, or sit idly by, like you just talked about, and wait for someone to come in and do the job we were supposed to do? But the only thing that's true is at the end of the play, the conductor walks on stage and gives a bow at the end. He always kind of comes back on the stage, and so who we think that conductor is, I suspect has some relevance of how we perform, whether we think we're on the stage or we think we're in the audience. But you're absolutely right. There's too many people sitting around waiting for a savior, someone to come in and do the work that they don't want to do. And that's the only thing I know about life, Jim, is that the thing that I least want to do is the thing that I most need to do next. The thing that I'm avoiding is the only thing I really should be doing right now. And
100%.
And brother, I mean, and that's the one thing we push off.
You're right. And I've been doing it for a long time. And I'm pushing extremely hard to finally make that move. And do it in a way in my head and my spirit that it's done right. So it's not about, oh, look at me. It's about, wow, I hope someone's life was healed, was changed, was inspired, and was able to or saved, however you want to define that. And I think we all have the capability of doing that. But I think, again, the yin, the yang, it's like we all have the capability of doing that. However, we're still in the system of just complete distraction. It's just every time you think the distraction's over, a brand new one comes, and it doesn't stop. It never stops.
Yeah.
My struggle is this battle for all of us? Is it just for me? Is it for me? Is it a battle, or do you allow it all morph into whatever it will be? That is such a struggle. Because I get nutso with some things internally that really, I'm a guy that, Rick, I hold a lot of pain watching others suffer, and it drives me to it drops in my knees. I sob sometimes, and I know that sounds sappy or what, but I'm on it. I'm being honest. I can't stand the way humanity's taken advantage of. It drives me nuts. But I just, at times, I just don't know what to do about it. I do my best, but I'm like, God, I feel like there's so much bigger.
Yeah, and it's like the same question that you started off with, like, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of the pain? what is the purpose? Is it just to make us feel miserable,
Mm,
make to hurt us? And is God the
right,
cause of the pain?
right,
Is it the devil causing the pain? Is it just sort of a fluke? I don't know. I suspect if, from my limited amount of reading, my limited amount of study, is that sort of the philosophical and the theological purpose of pain seems to be something about getting our attention, waking us up, rousing us to something to pay attention. Now, I know
mm,
that that's not, obviously, most of the time it's our loved ones that are in pain. I know that you've been through a lot of pain with your wife and other family members. The idea that we see in pain on the ones that we love, and we sort of get hostile to that, we get offensive to that, and we automatically think of the sort of the selfish thing. What is God trying to teach me about that person, this loved one going through this pain? We kind of put it back on
right.
ourselves, right? And so
Yes,
what we need to do is try to figure out, what is he trying to do with us? Is he trying to build a happy man or a happy family? Is he trying to build a great man and a great family? Or is he trying to do something more than that? Like what is ultimate reality trying to do overall? And I suspect what's happening is that the ultimate goal of ultimate reality is that the creator is trying to build the maximally beautiful story. Because in a world without pain, you can never have such thing as healing.
that's right.
Without a world of sinful men, you could never have forgiven men. And a forgiven man is more perfect than a perfect man who's never needed to be forgiven. Let me repeat that. A forgiven man is more perfect than a perfect man who's never needed to be forgiven, because there's an element of the divine in the ability to be able to forgive people that offend you. There's like some spark of it. It's better that you had to forgive him than if you never had to forgive him in the first place. And that's sort of what sort of awakens me and enlivens me, is that, how do we get beauty back into the story again? Like, how do we get more beauty in our lives? And it's tough. It's tough through
It's
through
tough.
pain and work.
It's it is really tough. However, Rick, I will say that is the way. I mean, I can't tell you how many examples I have where I'll forgive someone and I'll even engage conversation after forgiveness. And you talk about two human beings bonding and then becoming a stronger force to take on the rest is so beautiful, rather than, you should have, why would you, and how dare you. It's very hard to walk away from that. However, that forgiveness, it really, the amount of healing it does for yourself and the other human being and for others is so powerful, so powerful. Um, so what is your next step, Mr. Walker? What do you, I mean, where does Rick Walker continue on from here? Because you're still a young guy. How old are you?
46. 46.
You good Lord, all right, you're a good decade, and you're God. How old are your girls?
Man, they are 17, 14, and 12. Probably similar
Oh,
spacing to your girls. You're probably where I was, what, about
yes,
5, 7 years ago?
yes. Mine are now 26, 23, 20, and all I remember is your stage was just putting out. I had a fire extinguisher, nonstop. You see the way this one's dressing? Oh no! Do you see what this one's getting into? Oh no! Oh no! My wife and this one. Oh no! Oh my God! What is going on?
Yeah,
Woo! You're in it. You're in it.
I am.
You're
I am.
in it.
It's Man, but it's great. I don't have time for anything. I don't have time
It
for
is.
anything. It's you got like travel
No.
lacrosse, travel volleyball. My oldest, so here's something crazy. My oldest, my 17-year-old, is pre-professional ballerina, and I homeschool her. So she comes to the office with me 4 days a week. She does video classes next to me. You see those old timey shows with the bankers, where the dad and the son had their desks next to each other, like in the 1800s.
Yes.
Exact same
Yes.
thing. Like, we're right there together. So I get to have lunch with her probably 3 days a week. And it's just one of those irreplaceable things. I've never thought I'd be able to spend that much time with my 17-year-old. It's a sacrifice because I can't do a lot of meetings, but it's really a blessing. But I look around, Jim, and I looked and start to see like the men that are sort of 20 to 40, and these guys are going through some crisis. They don't. A lot of these guys, they're sexless. They don't date. They have no ambition. They're on their devices. This is a device generation.
Zero ambition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I look around, I look at these boys that my girls are around, not all of them, but most of them, they have no ambition. I don't know who they're going to marry because they're in a household with a guy like me, just like your daughter's in a household with a guy like you, hard charging, very ambitious. And how do they find someone that sort of lives up to sort of the ethos that we bring to the table? It's impossible. So what I came to decide was that if those men did not exist, I would have to build them. I would have to build them, and that's what in part this book project is about. How do we build the next generation of men? How do we infuse purpose in there? And I think the mistake that people were making is they're listening to like a lot of philosophers and psychologists and people that are sort of book people
Yes.
to start, and they don't
Yes.
listen to guys like you and me that are we're doers. We just get out there and do stuff. I mean, what life is, all life is making it just like a string of failures with the occasional moment of perfection. Like I'm going to try 100 things, but I'm going to get one thing really, really right. And I'm going to mess up all the rest of them, but I'm going to try it. And just not being willing to quit is worth it. And so I've got to, guys like us, we've got to sort of infuse this next generation with the messaging. Like it's okay to fail, but you got to do something. You've got to try. This is your only life. This is the only one that you get. You will be held accountable either in this life or the next for what you do and what you don't do. And so that's really where my heart is right now, is how do we get books and resources and education into young men's life to help them at least have a hope, at least have a hope. And I believe, and this is the last thing I'm going to say about that, is I believe that if a drop of hope exists anywhere, it threatens all threats everywhere. That if I'm hopeful enough for you, for your life to turn around, that my hope can invade your reality because my hope exists. It's on the peripheries, lurking. But at some point, it's possible for my hope to invade your life if we communicate long enough. That's my hope with some of these young men that hopefully will read this book and hear some of the messages, hear the conversation today, is that at some point for one of them, hope will invade because it sits now outside lurking yet threatening to dispel all the threats that they sense are there.
Wow. Whoo, Rick, that's powerful. You just punched me right in the gut. Two things. Watch Captain Fantastic. Homeschooling, it's incredible.
Okay.
It's Captain Fantastic. That's just a side note to give you. There's moments in there that are like, wow. Because I homeschooled my oldest for a little while. I had visions. Wife, and it was a struggle at the time. If it was today, it wouldn't be such a difference. But what you just said is so powerful, and I'll tell you why. Because here's one of the struggles I have. You're going to watch your girls grow up, and you're going to watch men come into their lives. And like you and I think the biggest struggle for your generation, my generation, is what you said. We are doers. No one gave us what we have. We did what we had to do. You said you drive 9 hours and you were doing this. My wife and I'm doing 9 sets in a night, $25 here, $25 there, and we couldn't afford parking. So my wife would drive with me all night. She'd sleep outside the club until I'm done. I get in, like, we gotta go downtown and fight the drive. My spot is another time and get on and claw all the way until we get. And now we have what we have. And this next generation, like, why? How am I going to get that? Because they didn't see our struggle. And the toughest part of that is when an outsider comes in your world and they have zero ambition. And when I'm going to say below zero. There's zero, and then there's below 0. Okay. And then you see a struggle within one of your own that are taking on this.
Yes.
And, maybe this one plays victim. The below 0 plays victim a lot. People love playing victim.
They do.
And the one I've struggled with the role of, you said something very interesting. What would you do if this person wasn't in your circle or in your life? What would you do? You would go out of your way to lift them up. But when they're in the circle, it's like, you better live up to a standard before I start help. The struggle is, Rick, I'm a big believer in, if I see you trying, I will run to your aid.
Yes.
If I see you struggling, but I know where I'm going, oh my God, I'll come to your aid, and you'll be surprised how many others will come to your aid.
Yes.
But when you're not struggling and not moving and grooving and not going out of your way to make things happen, there's a fine line. Like let's say your daughter meets a boy, whatever. He doesn't want to know. He wants to do something in life, but doesn't know. He never holds a job more than a couple months. Let's say he doesn't even drive. How do you approach that? Because there's like, are you doing the wrong thing by going, hey pal, we gotta figure some things out here if you're going to be around, because this is not going to happen? Or do you take that approach of, if this person's going to be around, like, I'm just going to have to force them until they figure it out. They're going to have to figure this out, because the more you give, the lazier they'll get, or the more they'll give. That's a hard line, brother.
It is.
Speak to me. Let's say we're in the backyard right now. Talk to me. Give me advice.
As we say in Texas, I smell what you're stepping in. I smell exactly what you're stepping in. You've got a couple different directions you go on something like this. Again, I'm not to the point. I've obviously, my 17-year-old, she has a boyfriend. He's actually driving in from out of town today, so I'm hoping to be able to spend some time with him. But the exact same sort of thing plagues me, and that's what I worry about. The issue is, are we going to take responsibility for the people that have found themselves within our circle all of a sudden? Dostoevsky, the great Russian writer, said that all men are responsible for all other men. Like there's a universal bond that we all have, that somehow I'm going to be held responsible for how you, Jim, how you succeed, how you how you handle trials, and how well you work, and how you push through suffering. And so he says we're sort of all in this together, sort of a simple way of saying that, but all men are responsible for all men. But you can't just give people that which they don't earn. In fact, what you don't earn, you never respect. The only way to accrue respect is through effort and failure. What it takes on our part, I think, is sort of that awkward conversation. That first awkward conversation is always the same thing. It's probably like, I would imagine, you getting on the stage to do your first set of stand-up, and you were probably really bad based off of what you know now, and you probably you basically sort of embrace the awkwardness. Like that's what I had to do when I made cold calls, when I would go door to door to try to pick up new business when we first started. Awkwardness. That's what my 17-year-old daughter does when she gets on stage alone, afraid. She's on point. She's literally standing on the tip of one of her toes, and there's 1,000 people watching. That's like heightened vulnerability, heightened awkwardness. You could fall at any moment. Same thing with the stand-up. But if you don't embrace it, if you don't go, as I think I've heard you call it, balls out, and just go embrace it, it's never going to come. Like you have to own it. You have to go all in
Yeah.
on the joke.
Yeah.
So the relationships, I think, are like that, in that we can't have a mediator or kind of a halfway approach with these sorts of tough conversations. We've got to go to the individual and say, look, this is where you're at. This is where you need to go. I expect more out of you. In fact, I know that you can give me more, and you can give my daughter more than what you're giving. And if you're only giving her half of an effort, I only going to consider you half of a man. And if you ever want to have whole men, whole boys, and have a family and actually have something worthwhile in this life, you've got to own up. You've got to live up to being responsible, like a whole man would be responsible, a man that embraces the full dimensionality of his manhood, not only because you've got the right body parts, but because you embrace the work, you embrace the responsibility. Look, if you're not working 16 hours a day, you're not even trying. I mean, don't give me this stuff where I've got a part-time job at the library, at the bookstore, the coffee shop. I work 4 hours, and you're going to support a family. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. And so I think that it's our job to call forth out of these young men more. And how do we do that? We use the exact same formula that someone like Frankl used. Man's Search for Meaning is also another really great book. Man's Search for Meaning, where he tells the story of being in these concentration camps. And what he figured out was the only way that you get men to step up, sort of to lead through the discomfort, lead through the knowing that you're probably just going to die. You could die any day. You probably will just die any day. And you have no control over what you eat, never control over everything, over anything, is that you have to get people to look towards a future love or a future responsibility, that someone is depending on you at the end of this. And he said at one point, he didn't even know whether his wife was dead or alive when he was in this concentration camp. But he thought that it was irrelevant whether she was alive or dead. But if he thought that there was a love waiting outside the camp, and even if that love was dead, it was worth him to be the full man that he was called to be while he was in that concentration camp, so that he could be that for his love that was on the outside of the camp. And so we have to basically call forth the responsibility and also the love that's sort of on the outside, that's on the other side, that's in the future. And so I like to ask open-ended questions like, think of your best possible future self and ask yourself, what would you do if you knew you could never fail? What would you do if you knew that all your wrongs could be washed away in a single moment? What would you do if everything that you've done wrong, every mistake that you've made, could be seen in a new light, and those could be seen as actual steps towards a marathon of success? What would you do if you knew you could never die? And if we begin to think about our future in those things, and you and I, if we have the ability to kind of have that first awkward conversation with that young man we care about, to start asking weird, strange questions like that, it's that first awkward step that gives us not only the entry door, but then begins to actually have a hope to revolutionize his life. Because I guarantee you, I don't know who these people are, but he doesn't have another Jim in his life. They don't have another Rick in their life. Like you're it.
No.
You're it. And you're responsible for what kind of man this person becomes. And that's the unfortunate thing. So we're going to have to do the awkward thing. We have to ask the awkward questions. We have to call forth the future and give them somewhere to go, call forth a responsibility, and call forth a love into the future, and help where we can and encourage where we can, but don't give them anything they haven't earned.
Beautiful, Rick. That was tremendously helpful. I've had those feelings, and when I get that calling, I understand it. But then you have other influences going, oh no, absolute you. But my deep calling is exactly what you said.
Yeah, and
Rick,
you're by the way, let me just say this, Jim. Your emotional intelligence is far higher than mine. I've been watching you for decades. Your emotional intelligence is world class, and so I think that your ability to connect with people is so heightened that it's easier for you, just you being you, to overlook that and just to sort of dismiss that. So yeah, brother, I think I'm, you're world class, my friend.
Rick, I feel the same about you, and I really, it's a pleasure to have you on. Rick Walker, the 9 steps to build a life of meaning, and he gave me a whole bunch today. So I wish you all the best. I hope, if I come to Sarasota, you come to Naples, we can get a lunch, a coffee, or something.
Love it.
And all the best to your girls. I love that you're home watching them. Life is beautiful, and keep in touch, brother. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, Jim. Thanks a lot. Be blessed.
Have a good one, Rick. Rick Walker. Wow, it really helped me with a situation there because, sometimes we have this calling. Many times when I will go pray, and when I say pray, I'll go find a quiet spot. I will pray, and I pray for answers, or I always say thank you for everything I have. Thank you for my life, for today. What should I show me what I should be doing here, or the love that I should be doing, and when I'm quiet and just listen and put everything away, I get the answers. And you get the answers, and it's almost like we talk ourselves out of it, or I talk myself out of it, if that makes sense. So it's if I say, well, you're supposed to go, what you do, go reach out to this one and go spend time with this one. And then you go, wow, I knew that was the answer, and that's what I'm going to do. And then the next thing you know, you look at a text or a social media, and then your wife, and then your kids, and then something else pops up, and then you're like, maybe I'll do it next week, or maybe I'll do it. And then it just keeps getting put on the log and on the back burner, on the log. I don't know. That made no sense. On the back burner. You know what I meant. I'm going to put this on the log. What? The back burner. Yeah, my drive is telling me one thing with certain people in my life, and for some reason, you just got to take action. Sometimes you just got to take action, and don't fear the result, because you'll never know the result unless you take that action. Rick Walker, what a pleasure was having him, man. I loved talking with him. So his book is The 9 Steps to Build a Life of Meaning. Check it out. He threw out a lot of books today. I'm not a big reader, but he did throw out some interesting ones that I may check out. I'm just the worst with reading. I'll start reading, and then I either fall asleep or I lose interest. But things like this are great conversation. I hope today some of you really were into it and got something out of it. I did. And yeah, good stuff today from Mr. Rick Walker. So to all of you who are always there, thank you so much. I love the comments. I see that you guys absolutely love the Wheel of Spirituality. That was a biggie. And it just shows me and shows everyone else that's within all of us. And maybe we can all start getting more of that out. Maybe we start ignoring more of the things we don't that make us uptight and angry and want to debate and be this and that. Maybe things like the Wheel of Spirituality, the conversations like today with Mr. Rick Walker, and looking for a deeper meaning of how to help rather than how to fight, how to enhance rather than to tear down. I think these are great steps to uniting us all. Those are areas that unite us all. So look for the areas in your life that unite us all. Right? Thanks for hanging out in the Breuniverse. We'll see you next time.